Look at the equations. It is simple math. The outcome is predetermined.
You always do this. It doesn't matter. I don't agree with your numbers.
Have you ever argued with someone who just couldn't admit they were wrong? Even when the facts were right in front of them. It didn't matter how gently you explained it. It didn't matter how obvious the truth was. Some people will twist, stretch, bend, break, and reshape reality, just to avoid saying two simple words, I'm wrong. But what if I told you that this behavior isn't just ego, isn't just pride, isn't even arrogance? Psychology says something far deeper is happening beneath the surface, something that most people never see, something rooted in childhood. Identity, fear, memory, and emotional survival. Let's decode the hidden truth behind people who always need to be right, and what their behavior actually says about them. Because once you understand this, you'll never see arguments the same way again. 1. The ego shield. The first thing psychology tells us is this. People who always need to be right are not protecting their argument. They're protecting their identity. In their mind, being wrong isn't an event. It's a threat. Their brain interprets disagreement as, you're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're losing control. It's not the conversation that scares them. It's what the conversation represents. This is called ego defensiveness, and it makes admitting fault feel like a psychological attack. To them, I'm wrong feels like saying, I am the problem. 2. The fragile identity complex. Psychologists call this self-concept fragility. People with fragile identities often take everything personally, treat disagreements as insults, confuse correction with humiliation, feel emotionally small when challenged. They believe their worth is tied to being right, so when you challenge their ideas, you're poking the parts of them they spend their whole life protecting. They don't argue because they're confident, they argue because they're not. 3. The childhood blueprint. This behavior is usually learned young. Maybe they grew up in a home where being wrong meant punishment. Expressing doubt meant weakness. Admitting mistakes brought shame. Vulnerability wasn't safe. So as adults, they avoid those feelings at all costs. For them, being right has never been about facts. It's about emotional safety. For the fear of losing control, people who need to be right often fear uncertainty. Psychologists call this intolerance of ambiguity. Unpredictability scares them. Not knowing scares them. Being corrected scares them. Because to them, control equals safety. Losing an argument feels like losing control over how others see them, so they cling to certainty, even if it's wrong. 5. The brain's reward system. Here's the science part. When we win an argument, the brain releases dopamine, the same chemical linked to pleasure. Reward and addiction. For people who always need to be right. This reward becomes a psychological habit. They aren't arguing for truth. They're arguing for the high. Winning feels like validation, like power, like proof that they matter. And once the brain gets used to that feeling, it chases it again and again. 6. The defense against shame. What most people don't realize is this. The need to be right is often rooted in hidden shame, not the loud kind, not the obvious kind, but a deep, quiet fear of not being good enough, not being respected, not being intelligent, not being valued. So they build a defense mechanism. Always be right. Never be questioned. Never be exposed. This creates emotional armor, but keeps them trapped inside it. 7. The illusion of intellectual superiority. People who argue endlessly often see themselves as the logical one, the rational thinker in a world of emotional people, but psychology shows the opposite. Those who insist they're always right, actually, struggle with introspection, avoid, self-criticize, and confuse confidence with correctness, mistakes, stubbornness for intelligence. True intelligence is flexible. True intelligence adapts. True intelligence can say, I didn't know that. Tell me more. The strongest minds are open. Only insecure ones are closed. 8. Emotional immaturity in disguise. Many people think chronic arguers are strong personalities. But what they really struggle with is emotional regulation. They react, not respond, get defensive quickly, feel threatened, easily can't handle discomfort on. The T know how to sit with confusion. This leads to emotional immaturity, where being wrong feels unbearable. 9. The need for psychological dominance. Some people use being right as a dominance tactic. It gives them the upper hand, control of the narrative. Social power. Emotional leverage. Psychologists call this interpersonal domination. They don't want a conversation. They want a hierarchy with themselves on top. 10. The fear of vulnerability. Admitting you're wrong requires humility, self-confidence, emotional balance, but above all, vulnerability. And for many, vulnerability equals danger. If they admit they're wrong, they fear being judged, being laughed at, being disrespected, losing authority. So they protect themselves with stubbornness. Their resistance isn't strength. It's fear in disguise. 11. Cognitive dissonance. When reality contradicts their beliefs, their mind goes into conflict. To protect themselves, they choose the belief if the fact is stronger. This is called cognitive dissonance. It's easier to bend reality than to bend their ego. 12. The mirror they avoid. People who need to be right don't argue with you. They argue with their insecurities, their fears, their childhood programming, their internal criticism. You're just the mirror reflecting it back. Their anger isn't about the topic. It's about what the topic reveals. 13. The lack of self-reflection. Emotionally mature people can say, maybe I misunderstood. Let me think about that. You might be right. But those who always need to be right avoid self-reflection because reflection opens wounds. Reflection reveals flaws, requires honesty. They prefer self-protection over self-awareness. 14. Why arguing with them feels draining? Because you're not arguing with logic. You're arguing with fear, shame, identity, ego armor, emotional wounds. That's why no amount of evidence works. The conversation is not. It's intellectual. It's emotional. 15. The hidden truth. And here's the deepest truth of all. People who always need to be right are often the ones who feel the most wrong on the inside. Their entire personality becomes a performance. I'm confident. I'm certain. I'm always right. But behind the performance is a person who was terrified of being misunderstood, misjudged, or seen as lacking. Their stubbornness is their shield. Their arrogance is their mask. Their certainty is their escape. And their need to be right is really the need to feel safe, the calm truth. So the next time you meet someone you hope argues endlessly, who can't accept a simple correction, who pushes every disagreement into a battlefield, remember this. They're not fighting for the truth. They're fighting for themselves. Their behavior isn't confident, it's fear, it's protection, it's survival. And sometimes the strongest thing you can say isn't, you're wrong, it's this, it's okay. I understand why this matters to you. Because when you understand the psychology behind their need, their behavior stops being frustrating and becomes understandable. And if you're someone who seeks depth over dominance, clarity over chaos, and truth over ego, this channel is for you. So subscribe because Hyrule don't argue to win, we explore to understand. Also, let us know in the comments, what do you think about it?